Welcome to this week's episode of the Science of Golf Performance. I'm here with my wonderful colleagues,
Bobby,
Alex.
And they talk when I point at them. My name's Chris, and today we're talking about, I think it's an important topic because I think it's a huge misconception out there. We're going to be talking about why you need to stop using those things, Therabands, or other kind of like banded resistance. We have proof actually that Bobby cannot break the bands.
I got it started, okay? I'm holding to that.
Yeah. Alex, on the other hand, is strong enough to actually break a band.
That's fine. That's why she's nationally ranked powerlifter and I'm not.
So. If only it would transfer to your golf game.
I don't know why it doesn't.
But I think we see a lot of people in clinic that will come in like after an injury, whether it's a back or shoulder. I think definitely with shoulders, you see it a ton.
Tons of shoulders.
And then you ask them, what have you been doing in rehab? What do you do in the gym? It's, I got my bands, I do this and all that. And, and that's all they do. And then they get cleared to go play golf and return to sport. And they're going from 0 to 100 in less than a second.
Actually, like 100 miles an hour. Yeah.
Right. And I mean, the shoulder isn't necessarily moving 100, but the club head is.
That's fine.
But I mean, the shoulders will be moving 700 to 1,000 degrees per second. So moving with some serious speed and torque and all that.
Yeah.
So why are they used so much?
I think the first thing is they're very popular in physical therapy, right? So it's very easy to have a gigantic roll of this stuff.
And cheap.
That is true too. A gigantic roll, and if someone doesn't have any equipment whatsoever at home, I can cut a strip of this and I can at least have them do something that will be beneficial, right?
To a point.
Right, and a lot of traditional PT clinics that see people after surgery, right, that now have lifting precautions and things like that. I mean, this poor little guy, even though I can't break it, probably only gives you about 5 pounds worth of resistance. So it's very easy and very safe for a lot of people to use.
Based on how red your face was getting, I'd say it might be 8.
Maybe 10 pounds.
Maybe.
But I think you guys as PTs, there's a time and a place to use these bands, and then there's a point at which you probably don't need them anymore, and they become kind of useless in a way.
You know, she's distancing herself from us, you guys, and your Therabands.
My Therabands. How many people do we send you with Therabands? None. No.
No. Us particularly no, but our profession definitely does.
Absolutely.
And I think on the strength side too, to touch real quick, we do like resistance bands and Therabands, we will, there's a time and a place to maybe utilize them. I use them for activation of the muscles, just getting a little warm up or something. In no way are we using them to get stronger or faster in our club head speed. And, from a strength coach perspective, I don't need it very much, and I don't see it as a very beneficial way to get my athletes where they need to be. It's not necessary. I can use it in the warm up, like I was saying, activation methods, but it's in no way like a tool that I'm looking to use for everyone all the time.
How many times do we see someone come in with these type of exercises and this is their workout? Whereas just like Alex was saying, we use these as your warm up, and then you get yourself prepared to move some real weight, actually get those muscles stronger.
I think that's a common misconception. I think we get a lot of people in here and they've come from this setting. And it's not saying that your PT's wrong or anything. I mean, I think in that setting, sometimes it's very appropriate.
Yeah, it's a great place to start off.
But you need to be able to take that bridge. If you are a healthcare practitioner, at some point you need to get your patient or your client away from these, because you're not helping them if you keep them here. You're not building true resilience and strength, and you're not preparing them for what they're going to deal with in the game of golf, or in my opinion, life in general speaking. If they're an athletic person,
right?
I think people will come in, they'll do a warm up, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, that's the warm up." It's like, well, yeah, that's the warm up.
And then 2 weeks later, they're just like everybody else doing the warm up. Right. They're getting loose. They're able to talk through it and have a good time, getting their muscles ready to come down here and really work hard.
Exactly. So if we're saying that this does not give you enough load, what should they What's the bridge? What's the pathway? Right. So you go from this to how do you get to the point where you can be strong like Alex and break them?
Well, I think a clear next step would be, getting to the dumbbells and the kettlebells, like lighter loads where you can actually get a little more resistance. Sometimes people start utilizing some eccentric training with dumbbells. Maybe you're not at that point where you can get them under a barbell yet, especially if they're in like rehab or coming back from an injury. But you can start use small weights, some body weight movements, TRX, things like that.
Yeah. Using the cable machine is also great. So the big issue is over here, there's no load, and over here, this is as much as the band can stretch, whereas that cable machine is going to be constant the whole time. That usually helps a lot of people after traditional rehab when they've just been using these. Using that cable machine to strengthen the muscle through its whole range of motion can be greatly beneficial too. So again, that's another great place to start off with.
Yeah. Any areas, Alex, you mentioned in the gym where you will use kind of bands. I guess I tend to think of it as like, around the ball and socket joints as kind of great ways to teach kind of centration, like in screwing your feet into the ground. The bands help to kind of give you something like an external cue to push against.
Right.
Or, the shoulder is doing kind of a wall walk with some external rotation.
Right.
Are there any other instances where you guys will tend to use them?
I think for some core exercises, it can be just as beneficial as the cable machine. So if we're doing a pal-off press and there's a class going on and they're taking up the cable machine, I have no problem using the bands for that because, again, the tension's going to be constant. And obviously, we can use a lighter or a heavier bands to add more resistance. You can step out further. So I can find that can be a useful substitute in some cases too. Yeah,
some mobility movements as far as like maybe shoulder external rotation. If you want to put some light load on that, teach them how to use the load and get into that position. I'll utilize them in that way sometimes.
Yeah.
Actually, I'll use them like put someone in half. I want to work on like reactive stability or like kind of higher level stuff where we're having higher level relative to what they'll do in traditional rehab, not higher level in terms of sport performance, but so the kind of we're talking that bridge area of like say they had a hip injury or like a labral tear that they had to repair from, and put them in half kneel in kind of a relatively straight line. I'll hold the band out in front, close their eyes, and I'm gonna try to whip them around, and how well can they stabilize? And so I think there are definitely benefits to the variable resistance that it does offer. But I think it's a time and a place, like what you guys are saying, that sometimes they're great, sometimes they're not the solution for everybody all the time, or for anyone all the time, I should say. So yeah, I guess that to me is kind of the gist of it. Anything else you guys can think of in terms of other instances where we should be using this, or other kind of cautions to viewers or practitioners in terms of?
I would say the last time is if you have someone that's on the road a lot, right? So even if they're traveling tour players or if it's just someone who's got a busy traveling job, the band is going to give you something that's better than nothing, right? So if you're really on the road, if you're watching this traveling, you don't have good access to even hotel gyms, some bands will allow you to work on something instead of letting your muscles deteriorate or get weaker. And so we use that a lot for kind of our travel kits, so to speak. So they can be a good little stopgap for you.
Cool. Awesome. Well, if you've enjoyed the content today, definitely please subscribe to the channel so you can stay up to date with all of our releases, and definitely make sure to check out the mini-series associated with this episode talking about how to use the Therabands, and then maybe ways that you can look at bridging that gap to the sport performance world. But
thanks for watching.
I didn't even have to point to them. We'll see you guys later.